Okay, thank you, Chair Williamson, Vice Chairs Gorsuch and Springer. For the record, I'm Margaret Doherty, and I'm the state rep from House District 35, which is Tigard in Southwest Portland. And I bring House Bill 2514 to you today to address a privacy issue that I believe most Oregonians would be very surprised to learn about. House Bill 2514 aims to provide a statutory framework to ensure that Oregonians have privacy expectations as it relates to their trash and refuse. Absent action from the Oregon legislature, the Oregon Supreme Court and our lower courts have been tasked with determining whether or not a warrant is required when the government or an actor on behalf of the government takes possession of your trash. Historically, the court uses the specific facts of the individual case to determine if an individual has a right to privacy. For example, what kind of trash can? Where is the trash can placed? Did the individual use an opaque or transparent bag to dispose of trash? Those are the sort of things that they've looked at. And while the courts do their best to interpret expectations of privacy and other broad overreaching questions, they often look to action taken by the legislature to answer some of the questions. And House Bill 2514 aims to provide some guidance on this particular privacy issue. Additionally, as you are aware, legislative bodies often respond to rulings relating to privacy issues when the ruling may be out of step with reasonable expectations. An example of that includes the United States versus Miller, and the case ruled that one does not have the expectation of privacy in banking records. And what that did is that resulted in Congress passing the Right of Financial Privacy Act in 1978. Smith versus Maryland, the court ruled that one has no privacy in dialed phone numbers, which resulted in 18 U.S. Code subsection 3121, which prohibits the use of pen register and trap and trace devices in many circumstances. House Bill 2514 aims to serve a similar purpose as with these two examples. In this, the body should clarify and signal to our courts that Oregonians should enjoy the expectation of privacy as it relates to their trash. I know personally that I've heard from many others that if I came out to my driveway and found somebody going through my trash, or perhaps the person I've contracted to dispose of my trash was handing it over to another individual, I would be very concerned. And in fact, I would expect that there would be laws against this sort of behavior. House Bill 2514 would help to achieve this. Put simply, I believe the bill largely codifies what many Oregonians believe they already have, an expectation that government will obtain a warrant prior to searching one's trash. We are working with some of the stakeholders. In fact, we're meeting this afternoon to see if we can go through some of the issues, but that is the basis of the House bill that I bring before you. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Questions? Representative Stark.
Barker was faster than me.
Go ahead.
I was looking this way.
Thank you, Chair Williamson. So one of my concerns just reading this, and maybe this is the conversation that's coming up, is that we quite potentially could criminalize the homeless that kind of rummage through different people's trash cans here and there and all of a sudden are committing petty theft when currently it is not. And so is that the case? Would that make, if somebody, pulled something out of your garbage can, would that be considered petty theft? And if so, how do we educate that population so that they would know the impending consequence for that?
Chair Williamson, Representative Stark, what this bill does is more if law enforcement wants to go through your trash to see whether you have committed a crime. That's what the basis of it is. Somebody going through your trash and seeing if they can find, cans or that kind of thing is not what the intent is in this legislation. So it is just if without a warrant, without anything like that, law enforcement would take your garbage to go through it and use it in criminal proceedings.
Right. And follow up. Or if counsel at some point can just verify that I understand the intent is that when I first read it, I thought it would apply to that other population as well, but I'm not an attorney, so
yeah, that's not the intent.
Just make sure.
Okay.
I want to address that. If quickly, I read the bill the same way that you did, Representative Stark. I think that when you were declaring a possessory interest, then anything interfering with that interest could technically be theft. So there would need to be a specific exception that it would not be a crime to take something. Otherwise,
okay,
I agree with you.
But a good point. Thank you for bringing it up.
Representative Barker.
So that was the same question. So I see the government, but it doesn't say that clear enough, I don't think, so that My neighbor wants to humiliate me, and so he digs out something or somebody who doesn't like me comes by the house and snatches my garbage and dumps it out, and then I read about it in the Willamette Week. And so that would be okay for the newspapers to snatch it?
With the way that this bill is drafted, I mean, it's never okay to go through anyone's
It would be legal, though.
things, but it would not have the same kind of consequences or the same standard of what you have to show the reason I am going through your trash, which would be a search warrant or something like that.
So, but somebody can go through my trash, snatch my garbage without a search warrant, and they're not working for the police. Willamette Week.
Now.
They can do that
Right,
now.
I know they can. So that's what I'm asking,
That sort of thing would be covered by the intent of this, whether it's specifically written is something we need to look at.
okay, I mean, if you're going to outlaw, I mean, if you're going to prohibit that, that needs to be much more specific in the bill, so thank you.
Well, I hope you haven't found anything in my trash, Representative Barker. Thank you.
Oh, yes,
Willamette
Representative
Week has
Lewis.
done grabs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not a question, but more of a comment. You were talking about a couple of state court decisions regarding this, but the law enforcement engages in this through a U.S. Supreme Court decision that gives them the authority to do that once it's no longer on the property of the homeowner. So I just want to put that in the record that it's not a state court decision that they do this on. It's U.S. Supreme Court.
And Lewis, Representative Williamson, there is, I believe, a court case pending in Oregon, and I think it was the state versus Howard Dawson. And so it has been in the Supreme Court for a while here in Oregon to pretty much go through and rule again also on whether people can go through trash. So that is pending.
Just that, thank you, Madam Chair. The reference that Representative Lewis is making, it's a 1988 case, California versus Greenwood. That was determined by the Supreme Court.
Is that what it was?
Yeah,
I'm not familiar with that.
yeah.
Great, all right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry, Representative Greenlick.
Thank you, ma'am. And this may be a question for the council rather than for the witness. It looks to me like as it says in subsection B, that the privacy and possessory interest ends when the garbage truck picks up the garbage. It seemed to me that a police officer could stand beside the truck and the garbage was thrown into the receptacle on the truck. The privacy right ends, and they could then pull it out of the truck and take it into custody. Is that your reading of it as well?
You want to be, yeah.
Subsection B.
To us, it was the same sort of thing, even, Representative Williamson and Representative Greenlake. To me, it's the same sort of idea and premise behind that, is that whether you actually physically take the garbage and go into a corner and have somebody go through it, or whether you take some of it out on the truck or whatever. It's the whole idea that I am going to go through and target this garbage can because I have ideas that this person is doing, illegal activities, and so we're going to use that. So it's the same idea that the purpose behind it is to look for something, whether it be criminal proceedings or whatever, and so that should be covered by at least a warrant.
I'm not sure if I can follow, perhaps the council could, but it looks like a section B, my ownership of that garbage ends when it gets onto the garbage truck.
That's what it says.
And I think if you extend it, if you intend it to be extended further than that, probably a couple of words in the dictionary at that point would be useful.
Chair Williamson, Representative Greenlick, I think your reading is correct. The bill specifically states that the possessory interest in this case would end once it's collected by the company. So there would need additional language to protect
I
it.
would suggest you could say once it's mixed with other garbage at that point in the truck, or something like that. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think,
And-
anyway, we can talk it some other.
Representative Greenlick, Chair Williamson, and this is from a non-legal, non-whatever back, but it's the whole idea that it wouldn't be that, I'm going down the street, I like that garbage can, I'm going to take that one. It'd be the idea that we're taking this garbage can at this address and so on and so forth, knowing that as soon as the garbage, and it's like the garbage company would not pick it up and then dump it and put the garbage back in. They could do something like put it in separate receptacles, but it's a whole idea that there was a purpose for going through a certain garbage can at a certain time. I think you're correct that once it's in the hands of the garbage company, then it is, but there should be a warrant ahead of time to do that, because there's a certain purpose other than to recycle your refuse.
Right. All right, thank you very
Thank
much.
you so very much for your time.